Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. So today I'm going to be reviewing someone's gameplay. They paid me to coach them, but they didn't really have time to do a call. So they wanted me to just kind of review it like this. So I'm just going to do exactly that. I'm just going to go over the gameplay with you guys, and then I'm going to send the notes to them. So I'll be writing notes throughout the game as well, and sort of just showing you guys how I would VOD review a game, essentially VOD reviewing someone else's game, but I would do a similar process if I was reviewing my own game or any of your guys' games, so you can also go about that. So I do like how he already just goes into the bush here, like sits on the edge like I do. I see a lot of people, they'll walk up to like a much further part of the bush, and you can see how here he's able to spot a ward out because of the fact that he's sitting on the edge of the bush. And then getting that ward allows him to now hit level 2 first, whereas normally you don't get level 2 until the first minion of the second minion wave. He'll be able to get it slightly sooner, potentially, depending on how long it takes to clear the first wave. So that's always a nice little thing you can do if you just sit in the bush like that. So far, obviously no real mistakes here since the game just started out, and it did look like he played pretty well in this game in terms of the stats, so we might be nitpicking a bit more for smaller details, which is a lot about what ADC is about, like the smaller details of the game. So that's always good. But you can see again how he's already focusing instantly on the wave and just playing for prio. When you're playing a champion like Zeri, this is exactly how you want to play it. You pretty much just want to be clearing the wave and playing for prio, and then you can react like this if someone engages onto you, especially into a tank matchup. And so essentially the way he plays it is fine. The only problem so far is that he should have walked up a lot earlier to exhaust. So there is actually an issue here that we'll go back on to kind of review for you guys. And so when your tank or when your support or someone is getting targeted by an AD carry like this, the best thing you can do is either target the AD carry or at least get an exhaust onto the AD carry. So now that I'm kind of looking at it in hindsight, I realized he could have actually gone onto the AD carry here and started pressuring the AD carry, because that's where a lot of the real damage is going to come from. So instead of just directly targeting the Leona as he does here, what he can do instead is walk to the right over here, and then at least get an exhaust onto the Ashe. Because at this point, he should realize Ashe is a stronger early game champion than Zeri, and Leona is not quite. Like, they're pretty close, Leona and Braum, in terms of like a straight up fight 1v1. I would say Braum probably slightly stronger, but because of the Ashe, the Leona and the Ashe are definitely going to be stronger. And so since Braum was already lower here, he should expect that he's going to lose this fight. And because of that, you would want to walk up a little further, exhaust the Ashe, and then start just pressuring the Ashe so that she backs off and doesn't kill her her support there. So obviously then instead, since Zeri is targeting the Leona, we end up having the Braum die because we exhaust late, and then now we're stuck here being quite low. So that's kind of the first mistake there. Typically, if you're in a tank v tank matchup and the tanks are hitting each other, you want to try targeting the AD carry, especially with your exhaust and things like that, because that's where the real damage comes in. But definitely a lot of mistakes from the Braum too, like their Braum got hit a lot too much, and then obviously took way more damage than he should have. And when that happens, typically the best way to bail them out is just that targeting of the AD carry. And so now here, he should just push the wave as quick as he possibly can, because he wants to recall now that he should have boots if he pushes this one wave. So I would much prefer to just focus on clearing the wave, whereas now the Kayn wasn't ever really in a position where we could kill him. And now what we have to do is push the next wave, because the next wave is also coming, and it'll get frozen on. So if we had pushed the wave quicker, we could have recalled quicker, gotten boots quicker, and then helped our team. And so even what he should do here is push the entire wave, which he does end up doing. But we can see how, because he didn't get a quicker recall off by pushing the first wave really quickly, he's now not able to potentially help on the bottom side of the map. And the enemy are able to get back here, and they're able to get the entire wave. So again, had he cleared that initial wave a lot quicker and realized that he wants to recall for boots, he would have caused the enemy to have to make a choice between either killing the minion wave under the turret or killing his teammates on that rotation to the scuttle. But instead, they were able to both go to the scuttle and help, and then also go back and get the entire wave because of how long we took to push it. So being quicker on that would be the first thing. And I kind of forgot that I'm going to write notes out in between here. So I'm going to just pull up my notes here real quick and just write out the first couple points that we spoke about. So the first thing that we spoke about here is that we want to target enemy ADC when enemy tank engages on our support. And then the second thing again, push wave quicker when we are close to boots. And yeah, those are the first two main things that we spoke about. We'll continue to talk about the other things as they come up. But I'm just going to kind of go back and forth writing notes out depending on when we see something specific, rather than doing it at the end like I sometimes do. Because this is typically how I go about VOD reviewing my own games, is I'll write the notes out in between the game, because then it's easier to remember and catch everything. And so obviously here it's really good that he goes super aggressive since he sees his jungler, and that's perfect. Then gets him very strong. And this is exactly what we want to have happen as a Zeri. I mean, Zeri is one of the strongest late game champions in the game, so as long as you're able to get through the early game, that's already enough, and you don't really need to play too over aggressive. So he's overall played quite well, following up on engages and not making too many aggressive plays. Again, just those small things in terms of targeting the AD carry with the exhaust and focusing them, and then being a little quicker with pushing the wave on that one play. But overall, very good here. After he gets the 2 plates, I would probably just try to recall a bit quicker here, whereas he kind of overstays. And the problem with this, so this is the next, small mistake. And so our objective here at this point, so once we see this, we know, we'll look at the death timers here to kind of pay better attention. So let's look at the death timers. Ashe just respawned right now, and that means that we probably have enough time to push this one wave and maybe get an extra plate, but by that time Ashe will most certainly come back, so there's no way we're going to get a 3rd plate. And what he ends up doing is he tries to stick around for too long. And when you stick around for too long after getting a kill or something like this, what happens is now the enemy get control over the wave. So as we see here, they end up recalling a bit late. Because of this, he's now stuck in lane and hasn't recalled for his buy. So that's going to be the next main thing that we'll write down for the notes here, which is basically, again, make sure do not overstay when pushing plates after a kill. Make sure to basically, you want to make sure to recall. I'm trying to find a way to word it well, because it's a little hard to word it, but basically you don't want to overstay after pushing a kill, and the reason is because it allows the enemy control over the wave. And that's the main issue. Whereas say we had recalled 5-10 seconds earlier, you would get back in time and not lose anything, but here you very likely will lose a plate, or you get stuck in lane like here. So you can see now he gets stuck in lane without being able to buy, whereas if he had backed about 5-10 seconds ago, he might lose 1 minion max, but he would have bought after getting a double kill. He'd be much stronger in terms of items, and he'd come back in a really good position to fight. But instead here, he's kind of stuck here for a long time. We're going to see now he tries to recall, which is a good time to recall, but if the enemy were properly paying attention to itemization, they would be able to punish him by trying to stop his back, because Ashe can get use her 3rd ability to get the vision on them, and they'd likely be able to pressure them off of recalling. And that's something I very frequently do, and it's something you guys can certainly do in your games. When you do get killed early on in the lane, when you come back, if you notice the enemy have not yet recalled, play overly aggressive, because you're actually going to be at the advantage even though you did die, because you probably have a little bit of a stronger item than the enemy. And that's one of the best times to catch someone out, and that's one of the times where Zeri here could have thrown their lead, but obviously did not end up getting punished. I don't like this play at all, and the reasoning for not liking this play is pretty straightforward. So what are the death timers right now at, about 4 minutes? They're roughly, I don't remember the exact, 15 to 20 seconds, right? And going in for a play like this, when our jungler is not here, is very, very risky unless we see an easy angle to kill. So wasting your ultimate and your flash, which you would expect you're probably going to waste your flash if you're going for a kill like this, about 20 seconds before the objective is quite dangerous, especially when you don't know where enemy jungle is and your jungler is not on your side of the map. Because even if you do kill them here, they're going to respawn in time and still be able to get an objective most likely. And again, if the enemy jungle shows up, you're obviously screwed. So that will be, again, the next main note that we write out here, which is pretty much do not waste all of your key cooldowns right before basically like right before an objective, especially when your jungle is not there, because again, a lot of risky things that could have happened here. Had he done this 10 seconds later and he knew he could get a kill, then it's fine, because that's going to be a time where now the enemy will be dead for the objective spawn timer. But instead he goes in here when they are full health as well, which obviously is another dangerous part of it, and the enemy end up like playing it really poorly and dying. but I still don't think this is the correct play to make. You know, the outcome, of course, does work out pretty nice for us, but we can see how close it was. And again, our jungler wasn't here. We don't know where theirs is. Could be risky, but even if we did know where theirs is and we didn't know where ours is, that fight, if the enemy are smart, all that fight does is we trade even health, the enemy back off, and then we don't have our ultimate, nor do we have our flash for the objective, and we're significantly weaker, when as a Zeri, team fighting would be very beneficial to us. And then luckily, the Kayn also kind of ints into us here, so it ends up being very, very good for us in terms of the outcome, and so we are very strong now going into this game. But again, the decision making that went forward there was not great. We should notice that our teammates here on the map and go a lot further forward and bait. So I think if we had better map awareness there, we would have noticed that as well. I'm not going to write that part down because I do know that he's aware of that, because he baited earlier for his jungle and went really aggressive, but in this scenario he just wasn't paying enough attention to the map and then ended up kind of not baiting as well as he could have. So that's a small thing that he could have done there. And now this is actually a very important scenario that I'm very glad showed up, and we'll see how he responds to this. But typically, if you take a first turret this quickly, especially into a champion like Ashe, who's not the fastest turret pusher and not the most scary with gold, you want to immediately go to Herald, because Dragon is dead, you got the first tower, you should 100% go through the mid lane, clear the mid lane wave, and then go for the Herald, rather than going back to bot lane. So if he goes back to bot lane here, I'm going to be a bit sad, which we do end up seeing that he does go to bot lane. And so obviously you can see that Kayn ended up getting the objective anyways. But what could we do in a scenario like this, which is something that I think is very important to speak about, is we could just still go to the top side. Why could we do that? Well, the first reason is that Braum is not bot side. And into a tank, it's very likely that we get dove. So an Ashe and a Leona, if they play it properly, could coordinate a dive on us. Our jungler is going to go topside, as we can see here, because all of his camps are up topside, none of his camps are up bot side. So either our jungler is dumb and goes to bot side, or he, does what he should do and goes topside. So for this reason, again, Ashe is not that scary with gold. I'm okay with Ashe getting some gold. If this was a Tristana, I wouldn't tell you to do this. If this was a Jinx, I wouldn't tell you to do this. But into an Ashe, Leona, they get a bit of gold, but we trade that for getting extra free gold topside, because I'm going to go topside. There's likely going to be some type of fight there. I'll ping that for my support to go there, and we're going to be able to make a play again. I would have already had it in my mind that I want to possibly get the objective, but even once it died, I could make a play onto that Aatrox with my Renekton, pressure the turret plates, get a lot of gold on myself. Instead here, the enemy could potentially dive us if they're coordinated properly. Ashe could arrow, and if the arrow hits us, then Leona stuns us, and we could get one shot. Now that doesn't end up happening because, again, the enemy, as we have kind of seen throughout this game, they're not very good. But that's a very important thing to do to really snowball a lead much harder when you're on these type of hyper carry champions into a champion like Ashe, who does not utilize gold or turret pushing as effectively as some other champions. And so you can even see now how topside they ended up getting a kill on that Aatrox. Now imagine we were there, that Kayn probably dies as well, and we're probably pressuring their entire turret right now, and the turret is dying. Instead, we're kind of in mid lane where Ahri can easily wave clear, and maybe we'll get one turret play, but it's just not nearly as beneficial. Taking a sip of water there, sorry, but yeah, so this ends up working decently well too, and I do still like the idea of moving in some way, and it actually works out better than I initially thought it would. But the idea of moving somewhere after getting that bot pushed is correct. Again, I would have just preferred it be in the top side for a few reasons, and the first reason is that top side is harder to gank because top side obviously is further on one side of the map, whereas mid lane you can always get ganked from either side of the map, but if you're top side, it's a lot easier to pressure. Additionally, it's a champion with worse wave clear in Aatrox, who has to go further up to wave clear, whereas Ahri can wave clear from a much safer distance. So it's also harder to kind of punish her there. And again, because of the fact that Ashe is not scary with gold, I'm kind of okay with giving up that additional gold. So that's the next thing that we'll write down as well as a note, which again, basically just if we take first turret bot and drag, and there's a chance to get Herald, then rotate to that side and try to snowball our lead. Only into ADC who is not scary with gold, such as Ashe, and then like sort of other just not as like hyper carry ones, like I would say like Misfortune, these types of AD carries, even Varus. I mean, they're all obviously, every AD carry is good with gold, but it's more so that these AD carries, they're not going to push as fast, and they're not going to be as scary like super late game, even if they get a bit of gold on them, whereas those champs are a bit more like they're going to be okay in the mid and early game, but the later parts of the game aren't quite as scary. And so his awareness of farming is still pretty decent, though. He goes to the mid lane, plays for that turret, goes bot lane. Again, a small thing here, he should walk up for this bot wave, which he does end up doing, which is good. The reason that he knows he can walk up and should know that he can walk up is one, because he has flash, ult, and exhaust, so he's very safe, just never really going to die with all of those things. And then we obviously saw the enemy in mid lane as well. So now that all of the turrets are killed on every side of the map, we're essentially just looking for as much gold as possible on any part of the map that we can, wherever there is a wave. So for example, we should go bot here because our teammates are covering the other lanes. And now the only real thing to play for is waves. So again, once all of these turrets or outer turrets are killed, you pretty much just farm your enemy or your teammates' jungle camps, and you will just farm a side lane. So, or mid lane, really wherever your teammates aren't, you just want to farm somewhere. And so we're going to see that he does that. I'm kind of going to skip through and see if we find anything useful, but I'm assuming the next useful kind of part of the game is going to be at the dragon. And so this is actually something that I don't really like him doing. I don't really like over forcing for a play on here. What I would much prefer to do, again, the goal is to catch side waves, or to catch waves rather. And so after I push this bot wave, I would rotate to the mid lane, because you can see here his mid laner is dead, which means that wave's not going to be caught by someone else. And so I could go and get this guaranteed 200 gold that's coming, because I can see my wave is about to reach mid lane, which means obviously enemy wave is as well. Instead, what he does is he tries to force a kill on an Ahri who we don't know if she has flash or not. We assume she probably has ultimate. She should be nearly impossible to kill. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to work out, but even if it does, he probably has to waste his flash, his ultimate, his exhaust, at least a couple of these things. Braum might all of these different things will essentially be wasted when there is a dragon coming relatively soon. But even if there was no dragon, we're forcing on a play where, again, really risky, really low likelihood of working. Enemy has dashes and lots of other things, when we could just get a free wave on a different side of the map. So that's something we'll write about as well. Now, it looks like he might end up getting the kill. We'll see on this third dive. He doesn't quite get the kill, and then it does result obviously in a death here. So we can kind of see, we saw the writing on the wall before the play actually even occurred, and that's something that we'll write about as well. So basically, once all outer turrets are destroyed, we should just focus on getting waves before drag, and hitting our power spike. Only force kills if we have lots of info, so we know where lots of the enemy are. We know, if flashes are down, Ahri ultimate, for example, say Ahri had no flash ult and we know that, well then you could go on the Ahri there, right? But if we don't have the info on Ahri's cooldowns, we don't have info on where the enemy jungler is located or anything like this, something like what we just saw is going to happen, where now Braum gets a kill on Ahri, we don't get that kill, we give away a big shutdown, we lose our flash, we lose our exhaust, and now we're not going to have those things up for the dragon, and our ultimate probably will be close to coming up for the dragon. But again, these cooldown wasting is something we saw on both the first dragon and the second dragon now, where he's not really keeping a great he's not really keeping in track of when the dragon is spawning, right? And so this lack of awareness of the dragon spawn ends up leading to a much more easy time for the enemy to catch him out, because now he doesn't have a lot of his main cooldowns that he does need as a champion. So now he's much less useful in this fight. Additionally, focus on the mid wave as soon as the mid wave is coming. So that's going to be another thing that we will write as well. Gain control of mid wave before drag. And the reason that you want to gain control of mid wave and go directly through mid rather than go to a side lane right when dragon is spawning is because it allows you access to get easy vision on the enemy and also draw them to you. So if you go mid wave instantly here as the dragon is spawning, the enemy have to show themselves on the mid wave. If they don't show themselves, the wave will crash under their turret and they'll lose free gold. And then this gives you access, once the enemy show, to go into the river, get that vision of the bushes, have control over the river, and then set up nicely for the fight. So it's a very big mistake here to just walk and sit in the bush like this, as he does here. Again, if he's really that scared, he can just go and ward, for example, the bush, right by the river or right by the mid lane, the bot river and the mid lane, like that bush right there. Instead, now we're stuck walking through not as good of an angle, and we can see our Orianna gets caught out there because we don't go for control over the mid wave. Now we're stuck again with we don't have our cooldowns that we otherwise should have had because of the earlier fight on Ahri. And then we need to be very aware. Okay, this is another very big mistake with our mechanical kind of gameplay here. So again, we had this setup issue that we didn't go through mid lane first, which allows our Ahri to get caught and doesn't give us proper vision or setup of the objective. And then once we go into this fight, a very big mistake happens, which he does not have his flash again, and so he needs to be much more careful with his dash. But he dashes forward despite no cooldowns coming out of the enemy. So again, I want to keep in mind, when we go into a fight, we need to keep track of enemy cooldowns and understand what are the most dangerous things to us. And so going into this fight, Ashe ultimate can be quite scary. Kayn popping out of nowhere, very, very scary. Leona obviously can engage on us. Ahri, dash, ult, all these things very scary as well. And Aatrox can run on us. So there are many, many things that need to be waited out until we really go forward. I would say especially waiting until Leona goes in and uses her CC, and waiting until Kayn goes in, because that champion can one-shot us. Those are the two things that we need to be aware of before dashing forward and going for an aggressive play. Now I want you to watch how he does it. Now we don't really see that much. We see Leona go in, but Kayn's obviously coming out here, right? And we hadn't seen the Kayn yet, and yet he dashes forward. And so we do not want to be dashing forward when we don't have flash or other things like that until the key cooldowns of the enemy are out. This puts us in a very risky position where now we're fully in, we have hard committed, we cannot get out in any way because we don't have our flash, we don't have our exhaust, we don't have our dash, right? And so basically, again, we'll write out, do not use defensive cooldowns until you see enemy use their key abilities. Because again, this is a very good way to, just allow ourselves to die if we do what he did here. And then we see here, he ends up getting Kayn ulted on and get put in a dangerous position. Now he ends up being kind of okay here. He does end up dying, but it was still relatively close, and the fight kind of goes okay. But again, could have been much better had we not used our dash earlier and waited for the Kayn. It would be a lot easier to kite him, and then the fight still ends up going kind of poorly for us, where we do end up losing it. So again, the main issues of this fight were the setup. We did not go through mid lane initially, and then we utilized our dash too early before key cooldowns were out from the enemy, allowing us to easily die. And then obviously, again, that fight earlier on where we ended up chasing the Ahri meant that we didn't have our flash or our exhaust, where if he did have those cooldowns, I believe he would likely carry that fight. So those are the main things there. Additionally, I would probably go QSS rather than Stasis in this game, because they have Ashe, Leona, and Ahri, and all of those are really scary cooldowns, or really scary like CC abilities that to me are a lot more dangerous than the Kayn. Obviously, the Stasis for the Kayn is kind of nice, but in my opinion, you could either build Shield Bow to potentially kind of counteract that. You could just use your exhaust and just save your exhaust for him, which is what I would really do. I wouldn't even probably build Shield Bow. I mean, I could build Shield Bow, but I think, again, the main thing for me would be saving exhaust for the Kayn and then just building that QSS, because there's a lot more stuns, and that's kind of a lot more dangerous in my opinion. And then here, again, we want to be in the mid lane initially here. Walking up like this is a bit more scary, but I don't necessarily hate it since we're following our teammates. It's mostly fine. But going through mid initially would be a bit better, because we can see how it's kind of dangerous here. But he does end up kiting pretty well and playing this fight well, so that's definitely good by him overall. And since he was with his front line, again, I don't necessarily hate it too much how he was playing this overall. So then we end up seeing just pretty good kiting from him, and this is played pretty well. I definitely think this is a good fight for him. So really love to see that. Also, hopefully he does have anti-heal here, because the enemy do have a lot of healing. But I didn't quite see his build. And he gets a quadra kill. That's really, really good. And so yeah, I would immediately just go through mid now that we pretty much team wiped them, and I would try to pressure that mid turret to see if we can get anything on it, since the death cooldowns are relatively high apart from the Ashe, and I think we could probably just get the mid turret through the Ashe most likely. So after I get the mid turret, I would probably just recall it and spend that gold from that quadra kill that we got. And it looks like that's pretty much what's going to happen. So yep, exactly, perfect. And now he's just a super strong Zeri. I assume the game is going to be relatively straightforward, so we'll see if there's any more mistakes. But we'll kind of skip through and just see what specifically happens. So again, going through mid is good there. Going for the top side wave after, I like that, because that's on the Baron side of the map, and there's no objective on the bottom side, so I definitely like that we're playing through the top side. Even if our teammates get caught in bot side here, it's not the end of the world, because we're still getting vision and control over the mid lane and the top side, which is where, again, the things that really matter happen. So even though two of his teammates ended up dying there, you can see how they're kind of not able to really pressure the Baron, because multiple of them are still stuck on the bot side. And then we're probably just going to be able to team wipe them here at Baron, because the enemy are being really stupid. Again, that's why controlling the objective is a lot more important than controlling a random bot side like this, where the enemy were kind of overextending on the wrong side of the map. And then this perfectly works out where we end up just kind of popping off in this fight. So again, pretty well played here. I do like a lot of these plays in the last couple of minutes. I think they've been pretty good from Zeri. And then now we can possibly pressure the Baron. It's kind of scary because of the Kayn still being alive, But if our teammates are going for it, then we probably just want to target the Kayn and help them do it. So I would really try to get vision over the wall right now and sort of just dash over the wall and try to find Kayn. Like, that would be my main goal, which he ends up doing. So that's perfect again. So yeah, a lot of good gameplay later on in this game after like a lot of those setup mistakes. And then from this point on, again, I'm thinking we're probably just going through mid and it's going to be pretty straightforward. So I'm kind of just skipping through to see if we find anything else specifically valuable from it. But yeah, looks like we just end mid here, and that is probably that. Yeah, so that is what happens. So again, let's just kind of go over the notes here then as the main sort of review at the end to just reiterate the main points from the game. So initially in the early lane phase, I think that he needs to target the enemy ADC when an engaged tank goes on to your tank, because it's just going to be easier to kill that person. You're going to stop them from doing more damage by exhausting earlier. So that's going to be useful. The second point, again, push the wave quicker once we are closer to our boots. That is another important thing as well, making sure that we're playing around our back timers, our recall timers for certain item spikes. Third thing, don't overstay when you're pushing plates after a kill. Make sure that you're aware of the enemy, like when they're going to respawn, and you recall at a time that won't allow them to stop your back so that you can come back with your stronger items after you get a kill on them or something like that. The fourth thing, again, don't waste your cooldowns right before an objective. So he did that again at the dragon fight, or right before the first dragon, where he went really aggressive even though he didn't have a great kill angle, and then ended up getting the kills, but it was very risky and honestly probably shouldn't have worked out. And then again on that Ahri on the side lane before the second dragon, he really wasted a lot of his cooldowns, which then made that fight that should have been a winning fight a losing fight instead. And then if we take the first turret and the bot and drag, then we can just go straight to the Herald side and towards the top side of the map, only though if the enemy are a weaker ADC in terms of like scaling and carrying, like an Ashe or like a Misfortune who can't push really hard and aren't as scary with that. Again, don't do that into a Jinx or a Tristana, or you're going to be having a very, very bad time. Again, the sixth point, once the outer turrets are destroyed, focus mainly on the waves. Don't try to be, the hero. Just wait for an objective to come up unless you see really easy kill angles. Then seventh, again, gain control of the wave before drag in the mid lane. That's very important. Getting control of mid wave kind of gives you access to the entirety of the map, allows you to get vision and set up really well for objectives. And then you don't use your defensive cooldowns until you see the enemy key abilities, especially if you don't have, say, your flash or your exhaust or other things like that. Yeah, that's going to be kind of the main points that I thought were important. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're interested in coaching from me, normally I do live coaching. I don't do it like this. I can do it like this if you prefer this format and you want to send me your own gameplay. It's just $15 an hour for coaching. Just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description if you're interested in coaching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.